We'll come to order for our Hamblen County Legislative Body Committee meetings this January the 8th, 2024. As we get started, Commissioners, at your seat, you'll find a memorandum from the Hamblen County Emergency Communications District, Eric Carpenter. He sent all of us some material to scan over. Just take note of that, please. Also at your desk, you've got Future Ready Expo information. There was something else, wasn't there, Trish? Oh, yes, and the rack card for the wheel tax increase. It's at your desk. Hope you find all that information. So we'll get started. Call to order the Justice Center Public Safety Committee. Chairman Horner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the Justice Center Public Safety Committee to order. If there's anyone wishing to address, may do so at this time.
Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road. You, of course, have another change order, another $73,000 for a total of roughly $2 million worth of change orders. My question is, when are you going to find out something from your contract attorney on the change orders, on how this is supposedly going to be handled, with the questions about filings and design deficiencies and so forth? And the only other question I have would be regarding looking at the change order, proposed change order 16 or whatever it is. I noticed that, of course, you have your the proposed change orders, and then they are added up together to come up with the actual change order that you'll vote on. There are a lot of proposed change orders missing, or at least not listed on this current proposal. It'll skip from, and I'm just giving an example because I don't have it with me right now, like proposed change order 59, and then it will skip and there'll be proposed change order number 62. And that is consistent throughout that change order. And I'd like to know what are the proposed change orders that are not listed on that, or it's certainly not in the sequence that is shown there. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we'll move on. Item 3A, old business, there is none. Item 4A, Justice Center project update, Tony Pettit, Burwell Construction.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Progress, I was telling the mayor back there that my father was a construction superintendent, and I never could figure out why he was so grumpy between Thanksgiving and New Year's. It was basically, in construction, productivity kind of goes away. This job's done a pretty good job of it, but you still see a little bit of drop in it, but it's picked back up again. They run about 120 to 130 craftsmen on that job every day, plus all the other people that's looking over it and stuff like that. So it's a pretty dynamic job, and it's rocking right along. The substantial completion date is still holding for July 31st. Contract is still $94,310,547.16, which includes the bigger change order of the converting the shell space to a courthouse. Billed through December is $69,254,011.16. And that brings you to 73.43% complete. Stored materials, how the American Institute of Architects does this on their pay apps, they have a stored material line that allows the contractor to pay for it. We've taken advantage of that by allowing them to beat inflation by buying as much as we can early. And it's been up, as you all know, as I've reported, it's been up to close to $10 million at a time. And as that work moves, that stored material moves into the work in place, you don't pay for it again, so it's kind of hard to follow the bottom line of that continuation sheet on your pay app. But what you find out is that they've still got $7,434,000 worth of stored materials. That's down $500,000 from last month that we reported, and it's still different materials coming in and coming out. Most of them now are stored on site. If you take that $7,434,000 out of the work completed to date, work stored and completed to date, that brings her completion to 65.5% complete. And that's through the end of December. Miscellaneous concrete continues, CMU throughout the buildings. There's a lot of CMU in this project. Steelwork is working on the detention towers with the mezzanines and all that. That's still going. Most of the structural steel is up and in place. Roofing continues. You'll see them working out on the Sally Port, which is from the back side of the building, and then they're working some on the front side of the building. And it'll cycle back through here. I'll look at these pictures in a second. We'll talk about them. MET trades come. They've got just under 50 people a day working on this with the mechanical and the plumbing, and then the electrical's got another 20, 26 people. That varies more depending on what they got going on day to day working on the electrical. So start on the pictures. Kind of we roll through these. Stop cycling. No. Okay. So here you're looking back in from the backside of the building into the loading dock, and then the judges' area where they will be parkings beyond that. This is back where the judges are, and the egress to where the trustees will be going in and out of the building eventually. A shot of the Justice Center portion that we're looking at, plus the tower in the back. All the Justice Center will have bricks starting on it and sheathing and stuff. There's the Sally Port in Sinyala, and they'll have a brick veneer around it, matching the rest of the building. And that's what we got for that right now. Elevator work's beginning to start. It's the only other note I made. Any questions?
Yes, sir, I have one. When it said notes dropout repair, can you give me a,
That's change order 16. I'll give you that here in just a second.
okay, thank you, sir.
Any questions on progress report or anything like that?
No, we'll move to 4B, change order number 16.
Okay, now, change order 16 consists of these PCOs are potential change orders. So they sometimes turn into change orders, sometimes they go away and resolve, sometimes the ones that we really like, us being the Hamblen County folks, is the ones where we get to make up our mind rather than just pouring more and more money into grout foundations or this $84,000 change order we're talking about here in a minute. But this potential change order was a revision of the PCO number 53, potential change order number 53, is the way the drawings were designed. There was a closed riser going from the main floor up to the mezzanine floor of these double-tiered sails in each section, and we determined it would be better if we could make them open risers through this, so you could kind of see through the stairs and you couldn't hide behind them. So that's what that change order was, and it's a no-cost change order. Now the dropout, that's PCO number 69. This is where we've had and we've been working on this, I think, since October or something, where we noticed a dropout. We engaged our, Hamblen County's got a agreement with their soils engineers, and they come back and reviewed the area, and they suggested this repair that's proposed here. And what they got to do is they got to go back in with kind of a pile system. It's not a micro pile exactly, but it's a mini pile where they'll drill through some existing foundations and then some other areas, and they're going to install some metal casing and then fill that up to bedrock or grout, and fill that up with grout and come back in and cap it off, and that'll close up this sinkhole dropout, and that repairs this. The contractor, Blaine Contracting, we asked them to get a couple of prices, and they actually solicited 4 different contractors. Of the 4 contractors, 2 responded out of those 4. That's how busy it still is out there, and they were within $4,000 or $5,000 of each other, competitively bid. Made sure we reviewed it. Now this does have, remember this does have 2 unit prices that will affect us in it. It has a unit price for additional grout because our soil scientist gave them a quantity. So anything above that grout is $374.50 a cubic foot for grout. And then additional casing is $37.45 per additional linear foot of casing if we have to use more steel casing to go down. So be cautious of that, and the third party always monitors that for us to make sure that that is accounted for correctly. So that's the second PCO 69. During the course of, this is just some things, the course of the construction, we had some mirrors scheduled on the wall here, and then when we started looking at it, it's in the trustees area, and there was a wall that the mirrors were supposed to hang on, but there wasn't a wall there really. It was a low half wall, so the vision can be kept. So they've kept the handicap mirror and put it on a wall adjacent to it, and eliminated those other 2 mirrors. In turn, the structure was always supposed to be a low wall, but now we had to figure out how to cover that wall with, basically it's going to be a concrete shelf, about 54 inches tall. And so people sitting there washing their hands, there's a shelf in front of them, but that allows you to look back through the trustees area to keep track of who's doing what. So that's that change order. That was a no-cost change order. Number 72 was that's potential change order number 72, was the elevator company came back, reviewed our drawings. They're fixing to start, as I said. They said there's no way that you can, they're up at the top of the shaft of the elevator, there's got to be a heat detector and a smoke detector for the state fire marshal. He's requiring that. But you also have to maintain that over the course of the years and stuff like that. There was no physical way. The ceiling of that elevator is 32 feet, 34 feet above the top of the cab, more than it'll ever be. So there wasn't any way to maintain that shaft. So what we determined, and the Blaine was the leader on this, during what they call a shaft wall ceiling, which is a fire-rated ceiling at that right above the hoist beams, to allow the maintenance guys to come in, stand on, and when we install it too, come in, stand on the cab and maintain those 2 electrical devices. So those are in those elevator towers where we had the real clearance. So we basically have to add that back. And that one is $15,812. Then we took another credit for there's a area, if you tour the building, as you go through the Sally Port, on the right, there's a bunch of booking and holding cells as you come through. A bunch of ductwork, a bunch of conduit, and then back over it is some ductwork that goes back into the holding cells. original design was supposed to have that masonry wall close that holding cell off, even though it's got an 8-inch concrete deck over the top of it. It's got a hard deck. During these tours that they're given to the end users, they determined they couldn't very well maintain them. When there's always been an issue of where we put the access holes to let them get in there and crawl. We reviewed it and finally determined that if you put in a secure ceiling here in the acoustical ceilings in this day room, they're unsupervised. There's not unsupervised prisoners or people that's in there. I don't know what the name. If you're not charged yet, I don't know if you are a prisoner yet. But anyway, you didn't need that wall to go up. And then the contractor got a $20,000 credit for not installing that wall. Interrupt me if you got any questions so far. And then the last one, potential change order number 77, was to change the aluminum storefront / curtain wall, which is going to be all your window trims and stuff like that. And they changed it from a custom profile into a standard profile. They determined that that would work, and it would work real well, and we were able to take that $6,788 credit from that. So that's your change order. No days added for that. And that brings your total for the change order is $73,150. Any questions?
I have one, sir, if I may. For the cost of that dropout, do you think that will, basically what I'm asking, will it take care of it, or do we need to expect more when it comes to dropouts?
Well, what a dropout is, sometimes I think the Lord is just after me. So, but I said this dropout could cost $100,000. I wouldn't spend the rest of that between 100 and that's 84 that we got just until we get done. But they'll jump on that as soon as we approve it here. They can start repairing that, and hopefully we can. I mean, we all know how much grout's underneath this. There can't be a whole lot more grout that can go in this building, but who knows? So it's just down below, and we can't tell. So I can't answer that question, but we just hope.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
How long is that PCM 69? What's the duration of that, the dropout? Week, 2 weeks?
2 weeks. I'd say in this weather it may go 2.5, but at least 2
So
weeks.
they'll stable.
Yeah. The contractor that did all the micropiles, they vamoosed on us. They didn't. They're done. I think they lost a lot of money on this job, and they weren't interested in coming back. But we did get two reputable contractors that Blaine Construction and I am familiar with to get it repaired.
Anyone else?
Change order 072, is that something that the architect should have taught? Is that a negotiable item?
Really, I don't think so, because it's just a matter of ease of maintenance. I think over the course of the years and stuff like that, there's a way to say, okay, don't do it, and then you got to figure out later on that you got to get a 32-foot ladder in there, and it's very dangerous. You'd have to take out the whole ceiling of the car and be out of service. So that's the state of Tennessee elevator guys are set in their ways. And we're trying to anticipate through my experience, through Blaine's experience, the contractor, even through Mosley's experience, where they're more experienced in the Carolinas than they are here in Tennessee. We're trying to anticipate it. We already know there's 2 devices required, and most of the times that gets missed. One of them aren't there. So, but this was something we just didn't think of. Rated ceilings there to maintain those 2 devices, and that's it'd be hard to pin that on the architect.
Anyone else?
So you have a kind of a tin ceiling and then the 32, yeah.
Except the tin ceiling's got to be a fire-rated ceiling, so it's pretty substantial ceiling. It's a shaft wall ceiling to where you can't get to the other side of it. So it's a special construction to where the fire rating all takes place on this face that you're exposed to. But it is a tin ceiling, yeah. False ceiling.
Anyone else?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? See none.
Excuse
That's all.
me. Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Chairman. Thank you. Gentlemen, who was the second on that, please? Commissioner Richards. Thank you all. Thank you, Chairman Horner. We'll now move into the Finance Committee. Chairman Hahn, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll call the Finance Committee to order. If we have any visitors wishing to speak, you may do so at this time. You'll have 3 minutes.
Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road. I'd like to talk about the insulin price fixing litigation and the proposed hiring of an attorneys or a firm out of Puerto Rico. And then, of course, local counsel or area counsel. One thing I'd like to point out is in the agreement, it says, based upon the county's request, the county and council will not, it says purse, I'm sure it means pursue, will not pursue pharmacies in the county that are locally owned and locally managed. So we're going after, we're concerned about this problem with insulin, but we're not going to go after locally owned or locally managed pharmacies. When did you all decide that it says based upon the county's request? I'm not aware of any prior vote on that or discussion of that, not in a public meeting anyway. But I found that interesting, and it doesn't refer to this being in other counties. I'm assuming it is, like the opioid and other litigation was. I'm assuming it's a class action type thing. But it's very interesting that based upon the county's request, county and council will not pursue pharmacies in the county that are locally owned and locally managed. So it's a problem if some people are doing it, but it's not a problem that you would look at if other people were doing it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to speak? See none. Item 3 in our recurring business, we have our expenditure reports.
Hold on a sec.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. My bad. Go ahead.
Okay. Item 3, as I said, recurring business. We have expenditure reports for December of '23 and our monthly checks for December of '23. Require no action, but you can familiarize yourself with those at your own leisure. No old business. We move down into number 5A1, insulin price fixing litigation. We have a resolution authorizing Hamblen County Board of Prosecution of any legal claim against manufacturers of insulins and other diabetic medication against pharmacy benefits managers, PBMs, and it'll be Attorney Crystal Jesse speaking on this. Attorney Greg Brown could not be here tonight. Ms. Jesse.
Thank you. I do send regards from Greg Brown. I happened to make it back in town in time, and he got held up somewhere else, so I ended up having to come here. Most of you all I've met before. Those that haven't, my name is Crystal Jesse. I do have an office in Greene County. I have sent a proposed copy of the resolution and the contract, and let me be clear, that language in the contract is our standard language that we use because most counties do not want to file a lawsuit against people doing business in their county. So when I said based upon the county's offer or request, we would not sue anybody locally, any local pharmacies. That sentence can obviously be taken out at any point in time, but that's standard that I put in for every county just because most counties do not like to sue mom and pop locally owned pharmacies that we don't know at this point if they have anything to do with this. As most of you are aware, I represent 13 counties in the opioid litigation, and my litigation is ongoing. Several months ago, for my counties, I filed another lawsuit and amended for some that we were allowed to against a group called the Pharmacy Benefit Managers. We found this group during the course of all the litigation, and this group was a liaison in between the manufacturers, retailers, and distributors. What we figured out in the opioid lawsuit is that this specific group was hired to try and legally price fix drugs. Well, we realized they weren't just legally price fixing opioids, they were legally price fixing insulin. We have the records dating back to about 2003 when you saw the spike in insulin at that point in time. And then in 2012, when the generic forms came out, we saw the spike again and where the price fixing continued as to the generic. So what we are doing in regard to my counties, and all of them at this point, if they qualify, they want to sign on. If the counties don't qualify, we then look at each entity within the county to see if they qualify and they sign on. I've had no counties of mine to turn me down. So we're reaching out to all the other counties, as well as Mr. Brown is helping us with that toward Knoxville, and now as of today, Jim Logan toward Chattanooga, to pull in as many counties as possible. This lawsuit has not been filed in Tennessee yet. Claiborne County will be my first county that will be filed. They've already voted on it, and the county didn't vote on it because that county did not qualify, but the school board voted on it, and they voted on it in December. What it takes to be qualified for this lawsuit, your county or the entities such as the sheriff's department or the school system have to privately self-fund your insurance. Or in Tennessee, the counties that qualify for the state common benefit pool, which Hamblen County does, and it's my understanding that you use the state common benefit pool, will qualify you for the lawsuit. What we've seen since 2003, because of the price fixing of insulin, it has astronomically driven up what you're having to pay for your employees to get health insurance for your county. So we originally filed this lawsuit in other states such as West Virginia. As of December, I believe it was 23rd, we got MDL'd in New Jersey. Our path, the county path, has in front of a judge up there. The question about this, is this a class action? No, this is not a class action. Just like opioids, your damages are your damages based upon how much your cost was incurred and has risen since 2003 for your county. So it's a multi-district litigation. We will be sent for discovery purposes to New Jersey, more likely than not, for the litigation to get through. And if there's a settlement, it will be derived from your damages. We have discussed this with other counties. As I said, Greg Brown, and many of you all know him, he has worked in Hamblen County. He will take lead as well as myself for Hamblen County, so it could be me here presenting to you or him at any point in time, but you have both of us in Tennessee to come to. The reference to a Puerto Rican firm or a firm in Puerto Rico, Mike Fuller is a Mississippi lawyer. What you will find out, though, after the opioid litigation, most big law firms move to Puerto Rico because they have tax incentives down there. He keeps a law office in Mississippi and Florida and Puerto Rico, and he stays there 6 months and a day out of the year. He is a United States attorney and citizen, so there's nothing to worry about there. He's here most of the time, and he will be our lead on this for the national litigation. It's the exact same firms that led Tennessee in the opioid litigation. We were the first ones to file in Tennessee, so he is very knowledgeable about Tennessee law, and the complaint in regard to Tennessee should be ready to file hopefully by this Friday. If not, Claiborne County School System will be filed next week. If for some reason the county does not choose to go forward and sign the contract, then we will consider looking at the different entities within the county, such as the school board or the sheriff's department. They can file separately. However, we want the counties to file because you all can file on behalf of yourself as well as every entity underneath you. It would be better and more beneficial for the county. You get a lump sum and a bigger payout at the end, and you all can decide where to disperse that money. With that being said, does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what you're saying is, the insulin for the employees of Hamblen County went way up because of that stuff, because they misbehaved.
Not just the insulin, your health care insurance went up. And so that's why you have to be self-funded or in the state's common benefit goal. So even if you all had no one on insulin in your county, the price of your health insurance still went up because it's usually regulated statewide. And so with us having so many more cases of diabetics in East Tennessee, it went up more in East Tennessee is what we found in, other than Memphis, which stands alone by itself. So.
Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Jessie, could you elaborate, please? No public funds will be used in this?
Absolutely
in
not.
this?
I upfront everything. We upfront everything as a group, and that is one of the benefits of getting on early. In the opioid litigation, my county's got a 10% bump. So when settlement came, you all chose not to go with us because we took the risk at the beginning. When settlements rolled around, my county's got 10% more. So there's absolutely no public funds used. We will defend any counterclaims that may or may not come up, but like in opioid, there were no counterclaims. And if we don't get any money, then you don't get any money, and we do not come back after you for anything.
Okay, to continue on that, any judgment, you have 33%.
Yes.
Okay, in that, is there any way that could exceed the award?
No, actually, it's usually cut less. Like in opioid, we first initially had to cut to 30% to keep it nationwide because some of the tribal communities have a law that you can't get more than 30%, and some of the other states do. And then it has to be federally approved. And with class actions and MDLs, we got cut. So most of the time it gets cut. It will never exceed that.
Okay, so what you're telling us then, that by these resolutions you've presented us to agree to or change, that there is no cost to our county. This is, thank you.
No cost at all.
Thank you.
And if you choose to file it, it will be filed in the federal court of Greene County. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions? Yes.
Do you have any idea of the potential revenue or recovery or?
All right, we need a motion.
Motion.
Mr. Doty, do we have a second?
Second.
And who was that?
Commissioner Long,
Mr. Long. Thank you, Mr. Long. All in favor signify by saying aye.
discussion.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I thought we were done with discussion.
Well, and we could be. I just,
You're right. Does anyone else have anything? Any discussion or questions? Very good. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5A2, legal services contract with the authority to represent. Again, it'll be Miss Jessie. Can you
well,
address that in lieu of Mr. Brown? It is the legal services contract.
Yes. Did you all have any questions about those?
I think you pretty well covered that before, but this is a formality.
And I can just, if we wanted to omit the local one, the one sentence that was brought up, Mr. Capps can discuss that with Mr. Brown, but this is just the standard contract. Unless anybody has any questions.
could we, Chairman,
Yes.
could we ask our county attorney to check over that before? Yeah. Thank you. We could we could move forward through the finance committee and have him report
Back to us.
before.
Very good. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Doughty, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cutshaw, suppose we don't have any more questions of Ms. Jessie? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5B, bid tabulation for courtroom spectator seating. Mr. Mayor.
We have, over the last month, been working on invitation to bids for different furniture and seating and other what's called FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment items that the county is responsible for procuring for the Justice Center project. We have received 3 bids on the spectator seating for the courtrooms. We don't have the bid tab in front of you. We don't have a recommendation in front of you right now. There's still some evaluation that we must do of the response from the low bidder. And so we will have at the commission meeting next week a recommendation. So there's no action requested. And on the next item on C, this pertains to the invitation to bid for the office furniture, the cubicles, the chairs, those items, and that bid opening is next week. So we'll
No action.
again report at the commission meeting on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5D, storage space for new voting machines. Mr. Jeff Gardner.
As you know, a couple of years ago, the state legislature passed a bill that all counties had to go to some kind of paper trail voting machines, and last year, y'all okayed the purchase of the new voting machines. The only issue with new voting machines, they're much larger than our previous voting machines. We have them stored right now in the front of our office, which is taking up most of the room. We're going to have to get rid of them at some point. We have looked at secure storage spaces, such as many storages that have climate-controlled storage spaces. What we have found that those storage spaces have like tin walls with chicken wire ceilings, and the EAC, which is the U.S. Election Assistant Commission, had come up with some guidelines about machines must be kept in a secure facility. They should be restricted to only election commission access. Well, with the chicken wire and everything else, and I think the county mayor's office had looked at some options too, and we've just run out of options. My mother has a building here less than probably half a mile from the courthouse that has 1,400 square feet. It has concrete walls, stressed concrete ceilings, bars on the windows, and a deadbolt lock. That is the best we have found that we can use. When we were looking for storage spaces, we were looking for something with 200 plus square feet and looking for 2 because of the size of these machines and what it takes to spread them out to program. And what we found out is that it run from $350 to $720 a month rental for 2 of these storage spaces. She's willing to rent, which it's 1,450 square feet for $500 a month. And this would be a short term because I think, talking with Bill, hopefully when the Food City gets to a point, they're going to build out 1,000 square feet for us to store and program the machines on election day. So we're just looking to do a short-term rental to store these machines until that can be taken care of.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harville. Second. Okay, do we have any discussion or questions? Ms. Howell?
Yeah, thank you. So, what's the, you know, if the Food City building will have a safe spot, right?
We're setting aside 1,000 square feet for the election commission to store those machines.
And it's just because they're bigger, because, I mean, this building will change when the jail is finished, won't it? I mean, will it be used here, or?
The plan right now is that ag extension will move out to the Oak Tree Plaza. And so the election commission will move up to the ag extension space, which has more space than any other office in this building.
Did not know that.
And so, that's the plan right now. And then in the concept drawing so far for the Oak Tree Plaza, we've set aside 1,000 square feet for those buildings. So that they'll be locked up and temperature controlled.
Mr. Long?
Mr. Mayor, there is no conflict here with that being his mother's property and him being over the election commission, is that correct?
Well, Mr. Long, it would be a conflict. It's kind of it's a semi-direct conflict, but the issue, and I told the mayor and I told Mr. Gardner, I said, if you prove to the satisfaction of this commission that this is the best alternative as opposed to the prices elsewhere, if there were better prices elsewhere and there were better situation elsewhere, and, you know, and I understand that to be the case, that this is our best price and our best location. So, you know, the conflict is acknowledged. Just saying, if we have a better price, it just so happens coincidentally, it happens to be Mr. Gardner's mother. And so, would we rather save money on that? I mean, that's your all's call, in spite of the conflict.
I don't have a problem with it, I just don't want to get you in trouble, and I just want that.
And we've all acknowledged that, and I said, well, we better be sure that we don't have a space elsewhere that would be superior at a lower cost for the county. And I believe we've gotten that information and confirmed that.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
This is a short-term lease, is that month to month?
6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
And then an option. But yes.
If the space is available to move them 6 months, like up June, then it'll be moved elsewhere. So hopefully it will be no cost to the county as opposed to this cost.
I wouldn't anticipate being able to move them in 6 months. My guess is that it'll be 18 months that they would be in that space before the shopping center is ready to move.
In which case, I'll have to draw a lease that renews at the end of 6 months, because I think the initial understanding was, for some reason, that we were going from maybe from February through June at this point. I mean, the machines are not there now, but they could be in February, right?
Well, they'll be out in January.
Oh, in January, okay. Well, they'll be there in
No,
January.
we start already voting in February.
If you guys approve it, they'll be there in January, and then we can make it we can make it any term that you all approve.
6 months and then review, if there's something that comes up that protects everybody, I think, as far as any improprieties or, you know, perception of.
Good call.
So when's the next election?
March.
So you're gonna hang on to them till then?
No, we got to move them out because that's our early voting space that they're stored in right now. So, yeah, they've got to be out as soon as we get them out.
What about the old machines? Are they?
They're gone. They've been disposed of. Now, these new machines are like 42 inches tall, 21 inches wide, and 12 inches deep. Yeah. And weighs 52 pounds. So, it's just, we used to store in the register of deeds vault, but we could fit 72 in racks on the front or 78 in the front. If we put all 90 in there, there is no room to walk.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Long?
One more, I'm sorry. What about insurance on them? And then, so it will cover it. Okay, thank you.
Before we, Chairman, just to clarify, we are suggesting that we open up through Finance Committee that we send on a $500 a month for 6 months initial. Is that correct? And then just clarifying our motion.
Any other questions? Everybody clear? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E, Ms. Amanda Hill, our budget amendments, our finance director. 5E1 is Hamblen County Department of Education School Nutrition Program Budget Amendment Number 1, an increase of $6,180. It'll be Ms. Antrican.
This budget amendment represents funds from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to the school nutrition program to compensate them for their assistance in the EBT program for our students who are free and reduced. They generate the free and reduced data that helps the Department of Human Services distribute those funds through the EBT program. And so this will provide some stipending for software support and professional development for school nutrition employees. I'll be happy to answer questions on that first.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Harville, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, any questions? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E2, Hamblen County Department of Education, Budget Amendment Number 5, an increase of $397,680.15.
This budget amendment to the general fund has two parts. The first part does not include an increase or decrease in funding. It is for the Career and Technical Education Innovative School Models Grant that the Commission approved earlier in the year. There are a few minor code adjustments and some code changes that the state requested, whether it be supplies and materials and instruction or other supplies. But the bulk of it, $294,638, the CTE department's requesting to move funds from supplies and equipment and professional development to stipends, to provide stipends for employees outside work hours to coordinate the work-based learning program where students go out into the community and work and they supervise and coordinate that program, as well as CTE advisors who help our students with competitions and they go with our students to those competitions, and the summer camp. Stipends for summer camp instructors to include manufacturing, coding, culinary arts, agriculture, those types of classes for students in the summer. That's the first part. The increase of $397,680 is actually a transfer from our federal programs, IDEA, into the general fund. This is a state requirement. The federal government requires the State Department of Education to evaluate all the districts across the state each year and analyze student data to determine if there's any type of disproportionality in identification for special services. So they're trying to determine if you've over-identified or under-identified in any particular subgroup. So this past year, it was determined in our district that we had disproportionality in one subgroup for other health impairments, which is a specific category for special services. And the state came in and did file monitoring on our student files and determined that all the students have been identified for special services appropriately. Despite that, the federal government still requires that the district set aside funding to work with regular students in regular education programs before they're identified for special education services. So we're required to take part of our federal funding and move it to the general fund, and we will use those funds to provide supplies, materials, and equipment, as well as tutoring hours, and work in small subgroups with students in the general education program before they're identified for services in the special education program to determine that they're being served appropriately. That one's a little complicated. I'll be happy to answer any questions on that one.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doty, I have a second.
Second.
Mr. Harville, thank you, gentlemen. Now, do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Antrican?
So in other words, you were doing everything right, but the Fed said, oh, we don't care, you got to move this money.
Wow.
That's cutting to the chase. Unfortunately, I've been through that several times.
Thank you, Mr. Harville. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 5C3.
E.
5E. E. That looked like a C. I need to get my glasses. Thank you, sir. 5E3, Fund 131, the Highway Department, $1,186,241.64. Ms. Hale.
This budget amendment recognizes the state aid money that we have recently received. When we went through the budget process, we weren't sure exactly how much we were going to get, so we didn't budget it in anticipation, but now we have received the funds. The resurfacing work has been done, and then this budget amendment will put the money into the expense line to cover the contract cost and then recognize the revenue from the state.
Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Richardson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cutchild. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Hale?
One question, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Do we have, is there a preliminary, what we suggested that money to be, or estimation, and then we know now that we had the 1.186? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure. I think we thought it would be over $1 million, but not.
This is part of this is part of the one-time funding that was in the governor's transportation.
Okay.
That gave all the counties more state aid money.
Okay.
And so I think the estimate for Hamblen County, we will receive in total about $2.2 million.
Okay. This is part of that.
3 years.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other questions? We'll vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E4, Fund 151, Special Debt Service, $11,515.
Last month, when the county issued the debt for the purchase of the shredder at the landfill, with that came $11,000 worth of closing costs. So we paid that, but the landfill has reimbursed us. So again, this just recognizes the expense of those closing costs and then the revenue that we've received back from the landfill.
Have a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
Mr. Long and Mr. Richardson, second. Any questions? Let's vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E5, Fund 176, Highway Capital Projects Fund, $5,000.
This budget amendment moves $5,000 from the Highway Capital Projects Fund balance to cover the cost, the printing cost of those rack cards that you have in front of you tonight that are being used to inform the public about the wheel tax.
Have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doty, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cutshaw? Any questions? Could I ask how many of those we had printed?
We had 10,000.
10,000.
And the cost is $1,500 for 10,000.
Where will they all be located?
Right now, they'll be primarily the county clerk's office here and at the satellite office. And then we'll get some to the highway department as well. And, if you guys would like to have some, we'll have.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions? We'll vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5E6, Fund 101, Election Commission, $3,500.
This budget amendment is needed to pay for the rental that you all just approved for the Election Commission, $3,000 for the monthly, 6 months worth of rent, and then $500 that Jeff will need for a moving truck to move the voting machines to the storage area, and then on Election Day to transport them out to the precincts.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Harville, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, thank you, gentlemen. Do we have any questions? Let's vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Hall, and Finance Committee. 1 second. Now I'll move into our Bulk Waste Study Committee. Chairman Horner, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the Bulk Waste Study Committee to order. If there's anyone wishing to address this committee, can do so at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3A, there is no old business. Item 4A, the bulk waste update. Tommy McKinney, our Codes Enforcement Officer.
Mr. Chairman, Committee. I would like to open by giving an update on, basically what I'm doing is I want to recognize 3 different entities or departments in this update, which has been a very, very big influence and big help to me to see that we move forward with this. Okay. The first one is Don Barrett and Lorenzo Miller. They take care of our litter crew, who usually work on community service. Community service, and they help us out with picking up trash. We have strategically placed the stormwater department strategically placed 3 different garbage cans in different places in the county for, stormwater issues or stormwater trash and things like that. And Lorenzo and his guys are very, very good about helping us keep those emptied for us. Another thing that they have been doing, this was thrown into the creek at the corner of Fernwood Church Road, right below Sublet Road, right in front of the landfill. Thrown into the creek. We couldn't find any identifiers in it. Lorenzo's guys all looked and couldn't find anything in it except for maybe that they like pizza. But the reason that they helped us out with that was because the plow truck couldn't reach down into the creek and pick it up. So it was just actually, looks like a whole pickup truck that was dumped off. They have also helped us in the past before at Mountain Road, getting trash out of the creek. So they've become really instrumental in helping with this, help us enforce this regulation. Number two, the Garbage and Highway Department and Barry's crew. George with the Garbage Department and all the guys in the Highway Department have been instrumental in helping us as well. That was a house being emptied out. And another one. We had this is one that a business has been leaving out for us, but they've come and picked it up as well. This is what the Highway Department is helping us with. These photos that I'm showing you right here are actually community dump sites. Nobody claimed, ownership of them. And some of them were so deep that they had to be filled with riprap or dirt. And at that point, not knowing who to actually say, you're in violation, they cleaned it out, filled it up, and we put no dumping signs up. So the Highway Department's taking care of our signs for us, and the work in the Garbage Department is getting rid of the mess. This one is on just off-road Junction Road. This one is in a stormwater ditch, which was probably 6 feet deep. Those guys had picked it up there for so long it was at least 6 feet. I'd say it was head high standing. So they filled it up with riprap and made sure that the pipe and everything was fixed. This one was in Hurley Acres. It was very deep as well. This one is on Chucky River Road. It was a very deep one. As y'all can see, it's in the storm ditch. They fixed it for us. And this one was on Woodhaven Drive. And that one was very deep too. I think that one's probably about a 5 foot deep hole. And the guy that owns the property in front of that called me and actually said, I use it too. He said, but everybody else down the street does, and I've never said anything to anybody about it. So just to help those guys not have to deal with an area every single time they come out. We've done this. Most bulk waste, most people would probably just once or twice a year throw a mattress out or a TV or something like that. And the guys come strategically and have to pick it up. But when you have to go to the same place every single time you go out and pick up 25 or 30 families worth of junk, hopefully this is what we're going to need to slow this down. And it's working. Since we put the signs out, I've not seen anybody or not seen any trash in any of the spots. Oh, I'm sorry, this one's in a cul-de-sac off of Britton Drive. And that was in a yard, and they filled it up with dirt. Okay. The third and final people that I'd like to recognize is our Hamblen County Legislative Body. You folks voting this regulation in and giving me a tool, giving me and the Highway Department and us a tool to try to address this has really worked. Because of that, in 4 months, this is how much bulk waste that you folks have helped for somebody else to get rid of. There's 236 closed bulk waste issues right here that the guys didn't have to pick up in 4 minutes. I know sometimes you all have to hear the bad things, but this shows that you actually care about. By approving that regulation actually proves that you care about what your county looks like, because when it boils down to it, it's always been a bad mess. And my hat's off to all of you for that. And thank you for the tool that I need to get this done. Do you have any questions?
I just want to commend you
Thank you.
for the job that you do.
Keep it up.
I've noticed in my area, because we had a spot down in my district that you could pick it up one day and it was full the next.
Right.
And that's not happening anymore. So
George did inform me that come March and April, we're going to see it climb a little bit.
Sure.
That's when everybody decides it's time to clean out the basement or the garage, which, we kind of figure that. But
Right. Chairman,
yes, sir.
Do we have any hot spots yet that you're really watching? I mean, illegal dumping, I'm asking.
Well, the area in front of Hookers and Hunters that spot's notorious.
Get a camera out there.
People just backing in there, and some people's actually seen that there's, cars from other counties backing in there and dumping it off.
Do we need
That
surveillance?
spot's a bad spot anyway, especially for the safety of the highway department, because anybody knows where Hookers and Hunters is when they're coming around Bright's Pike down through there. They're just flying around that corner, and
So
these
what-
guys are out there trying to.
What's the solution? I mean,
I had the floor, Kyle, but,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I mean, that's in my district, so
Well,
what's the solution?
wasn't
I mean,
finished.
how can we make that, because I think at one time, we put the sign up, no dumping. It stopped for a little bit, now we're back up to it, filling back up again. They were putting it on the other side, now I think we're stretching it back. Do we have a camera or anything?
No, but,
If I bought you a camera, would you put it out there?
Let me address that. Sheriff said we've had cameras.
I'd
Is there one there?
mention that
There's a camera
Paul
there?
said that, we could talk later on when we've got, there's a lot going on right now, and the hotspot areas, Mr. Cutshaw, are not on my priority list at this time. I mean, I know it's all has to be done, but, it is something that is being looked at and actually thought about, because there are several of them.
That's where I was going with the hot spot. If it became egregious even more, that we could maybe surveil that. And by use of maybe something the sheriff's department could provide.
In between the sheriff's department and the county attorney, I mean, we could pursue, stiff litter fines if it comes to that, or whatever, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question to kind of follow up. So if you know it's going to be there at that Hooker Hunter Bright Spike, do we not have a bin and we say, here's where do we not have a truck that backs up and dumps that bin? And what if we just put a bin there and picked it up every?
You're telling them it's all right to do it then?
Well, what I'm saying is there's a spot for it.
Yeah, but you're going to have to put 6 or 7 other spots, because there's a place out on Clyde Thomas Road, I know that they love to, because there's nobody there. There's no houses, there's
think-
nothing, they just,
I think that's the thing with Hookers and Hunters. It's a bad spot. I mean, it's in a dead curve, so it's,
yeah.
It's easy to,
it's easy to, the way they do it is they're backing up, pushing it out of the truck and driving off.
The original reason that the sign was placed there to begin with, probably 3 years ago, was George actually talked to me, and this was, as you all know, long before the bulk waste committee, the bulk waste regulations, was the fact that it was dangerous right there. And I looked at the tax card and done some investigation, and I think I talked to Bill too, that's county property. It's not the state's property where that sign is up at. That's a little bitty section of the county property. So, that's why I posted it there. If you're actually dumping there, you're littering on county property. So that's why it was put there to begin with.
Commissioner Doty?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think we've discussed before about the convenience centers that we could have on each end, and as Ms. Howell was talking about a place for people to put it, it might be that we need to continue down that avenue this year to see if we can find something and somewhere for people to put it. Because I'll have to agree with Ms. Howell and with these other gentlemen that you put a dumpster there, that's going to be fine till that dumpster's full, and then they're just going to pile it up. It'll be a mountain as high as that door before they get there to empty it out, and then you're going to have somebody standing there throwing all that in. It just, if we have something, we're going to have somewhere that it's controlled, in my opinion. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Commissioner, question. The bags of trash in that, where, you said that was down in Road Junction area? All that in the creek? Was that right around the first of the year, New Year's Day?
No, that wasn't the Road Junction. That was one of the places where it was thrown in the ditch. You're talking about the creek or the ditch?
The creek.
Yeah, that was at Fernwood Church where you turn
Okay.
to go up, yeah.
Okay. The reason I asked that is, and this was an issue that I resolved. So New Year's Day, that Monday, the 1st, you know, we looked on the website, or it may have been the day after that. The landfill was closed, and I noticed, I went over there, looked on the website, didn't say anything about them being closed that day. Went there that Monday to drop off trash. They were closed, and you would not believe how many vehicles were pulling in there, turning around. And I even talked to a gentleman on the way out and said, hey, don't worry about going to the landfill, they're closed. And he said, well, I looked it up on the website and it says it's open. And that's when I looked up on the website and it didn't say anything about being closed that day. So that's kind of why we need that convenience center, because if we had just had a way for 2 dumpsters to be out, or a couple dumpsters to be out in front of the landfill for people to dump trash when they go there and they're closed. I mean, a great ideal would be if we just paved a road to go to where those 2 barrels are that you can over dump into them, that they normally send you, you don't have to go back on to get weighed. That would be a big step. And will we get people from other counties dumping trash in there? We probably will. But how many people from other counties are just finding cubby holes and dead-end roads and off-the-route roads that they're just coming and dumping their trash anyway? I mean, and that's why I thought that would have been a day that a lot of people were kind of aggravated that they couldn't dump their trash, and thought maybe that was somebody that was just pulling out there, got mad, and just threw it out of the side of their truck.
Well, they gotta have that pickup for something else, and there's your
I gotta have my
point.
truck next day for
And if
work.
we had had a couple of, that's a good idea.
To answer to you, they follow Hamblen County on the holidays, if I'm not right.
They close
Yeah.
Friday and,
Yeah.
well, on New Year's they close.
Yeah, but they had all the other holidays listed except that holiday. So that's why everybody thought they were open. That's why I thought they were gonna be open. I mean, because the following week they were off because Christmas fell on a Monday. This time Monday fell on a, New Year's fell on a Monday. You know, so that's why I looked and said, well, oh, they're open. I'll just go ahead and run this out there now. I mean, I'm like Tommy. For years, my front yard was that community dump site. I threw it in my yard, the neighbor threw it in my pile, the guy across the street threw it in the pile, guy next to him. We always looked at it, we were making it easier for the county guys to pick up 1 pile than picking up 4 piles. It's how we always looked at it. I filled up a 4.5-foot hole that the county dug. Next year, it was a 5-foot hole that the guy, and I always said it, does the crane guy not like me or something? Because he takes all the dirt with him every time he came. Since then, I just parked my trailer beside mine and my neighbor's yard, and we just all throw our trash in it, that, you know, when we clean up our yard, or, you know, Amazon boxes and stuff like that. And then whoever's got the opportunity to take the trailer to the dump, we just do that. And don't even fool with throwing it at the curb anymore. But it does make a big difference in our neighborhood that you don't have this big pile of trash in your front yard.
Any other questions? You got anything else? Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tommy. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Horner of the Bulk Waste Study Committee. We'll now move into the RV Camper Study Committee. Chairman Long, you are recognized.
Call the Camper and RV Study Committee to order. Is there anybody that wishes to address the committee at this time?
There is no old business. Start into discussion and new business. We identified what a RV and a camper was in our previous meetings.
through the holidays here, we have done research. There also was a meeting that was held on December the 8th at Bean Station. In that meeting, our mayor was moderator. We had county mayors from Greene County, Cocke County, Jefferson County, Hamblen, Hawkins County, Granger County, and Claiborne County. We also had State Representative Eldridge and Representative Hicks there. And these gentlemen are interested because this is a state problem. This is just not a county problem in East Tennessee. This is a state problem. And they're willing to do whatever they can to try to help us, clarify this. Also, at that meeting was our tax assessor, Mr. Ely, Charles Curtis, CTAS was there, and the members of TDEC was there. And just to give you an overview of this meeting, it was a little disappointing to me because I wanted to address some issues like we have in this county. That meeting really was geared at how do you tax these campers and RVs. And Hamblen County being one of the counties sitting in that room that does not allow campers and RVs. But those counties that do allow it is having problems just as like we've got, and I've talked to some of them since then, it's just as bad as we've got, if not worse. And so the state is going to try to help us, but to address this, we have to answer some questions. We have to answer the questions, where we stand legally when we do citations, and is the court system going to back us up? Because if it doesn't, then we're just spinning our wheels here for nothing. So one way Mr. Curtis suggested was the ones that were dumping sewer on property, running their gray water and black water, that we could use Tennessee Code 39-17-102, and I'm just going to read that to you, and then we'll go into a little discussion on it. It says, "It is an offense for a person to unlawfully dispose of water carrying human waste, household or business waste, or to pipe or transmit raw sewage or effluent from septic tank or other systems of any type into or on public or private property. Each day of the continued violation after conviction constitutes a separate offense. It is the duty," and you need to pay attention to this one, "it is the duty of the local health officer to enforce the terms of this section. But this shall not be a duty exclusively only to the local health officers. An offense under this section is a Class C misdemeanor." Now, in that meeting, Chairman Cutshaw, Commissioner Walker, and myself was there. The biggest thing is TDEC told us that if we done a citation, and I believe, Mr. Walker, because it'd be 4 to 5 months before they could even address it.
Yeah.
Because they're that far behind.
Well, it was,
And so what we did, I talked to Mr. Curtis, I guess 2 or 3 times in the last week here. They have a problem in their county just like this. And so what I asked Tommy to do is get the 3 or 4 ones that we know that are dumping sewer, get that list for us, and then I'm going to ask the county attorney to address this, of his opinion of it. I've talked to him. But we do need questions answered before we carry on with this. Would you like to speak to it, Mr. Phelps?
Commissioner Long, the problem that we have encountered, at least on one occasion, was with the court system not being either knowledgeable or willing to back us up on enforcing that particular statute. And I think the health department was trying to enforce it, and it wasn't a good result, according to Mr. Walker, who I think was there in the audience when that happened. And we're going to talk to the court people about that. Spoke with Mr. Britton, and I've spoke with you about doing that and making sure that they understand the problem that we have, and making sure that they're aware of the statute and exactly what it, don't assume just every lawyer doesn't know what every statute is, and every judge doesn't know what is in every statute either. So that's just not the case. So making the courts aware of what is in that statute. But also I spoke with Mr. Curtis earlier today, and you had mentioned to me the idea that he had said, well, you could just automatically shut somebody down. Well, what he was talking about was possibly some legislation that would allow the health department and or other enforcement officers to quarantine an area that, in a unit or a camper or an RV that was actually putting the gray or sewer water on the ground in violation of the statute. The Class C misdemeanor, and I haven't done criminal law in a while, but I think a Class C misdemeanor certainly involves imprisonment. I want to say it's 30, but it could be more than 30 days possible. It's not 1129 though. But, these people are not going to want to risk imprisonment over continuing something like that, I don't think. Question is, do we have the will to enforce it like that? And will the court, after we speak with them, enforce it in a way that's going to make it feasible for us to do it that way? So your Representative Eldridge and Sutherland, maybe someone you want to contact and talk to about possibly getting some legislation that would allow not just Hamblen County, but the statewide statute amendment that would allow quarantine. And folks, I drove over in Granger County. I was not even aware, and I think I may have been looking for mistletoe before Christmas or something like that, but I was not aware of the problem that they have in Granger County. They've got these little campgrounds set up everywhere over there near the lake, and there's no telling how much sewage is being either untreated or diffused wherever. So, as far as the county goes and a problem with that, yes, we've got a problem, but it's not quite as big as some of our other adjoining counties. But that doesn't make it any less important to pursue a cure for it. That's all I know.
Okay,
Not
thank you. So I think you see what we're up against. You can have rules, but they do need to be enforced. But then you also have to have, teeth to that. And Mr. Curtis was even, explaining the one in his county where the kids was playing in the yard where that was at, barefoot. So there is a health issue with this, and I think until we get the answers, this committee is just, I hate to say in a standstill, but we've got to have those answers before we can carry on. Does anybody else got anything?
Chairman, may I? Is there anything that we could do in the meantime? We've adopted our 2018 International Building Codes, which stated that we do not allow. Are we covered? Are we covered for anything in the future when we do this? If we sit here idle, does that condemn us? If we sit idle, having passed a resolution, could I ask the attorney that, please?
What's the question?
Yeah, it's fine.
Chairman, what's the
Well,
question?
because of the development here, until we know we have an enforcing mechanism, we have adopted the 2018 International Building Codes, which says we do not allow that at the moment, living in RVs and campers. Those folks that are continuing to do so, are we putting liability on our county by not stepping up?
We discussed this, if I recall, when we passed that resolution, that we do have, in fact, in our ordinance or in our building codes, provisions that say that campers and RVs are not approved as a primary residence,
Right.
Now, talking about sewage on the ground, it's just a start. It's one of the primary problems that we have with RVs and campers is the sewage. And you start, I mean, if we want to, start with a bulldozer pushing everything, down the pike, we may run over things that we don't really want to run over, I guess is. But at the same time, your question is good, just don't know exactly how to respond to it, because are we going to go out and cite every single family, individual, whether they be law-abiding or cooking methamphetamine in there? We're going to cite every one of them for living in a uncertified, illegal camper or RV, and have the court support, for one, and have the willingness and the enforcement ability to do that. We're going to have the officer. I mean, how many people would that take? How many sidearms will that take? In my neighborhood, on Cherokee Drive, if you ever drive out that way, there's a structure that's built. It's like a hut made out of metal, and then on top of it, he's made it 2-story. And that certainly doesn't have a building permit for that, but it's not a camper or an RV either. But adjacent to it are campers and RVs and that's a rough-looking place.
Right.
And I don't know that Mr. McKinney is going to want to be heading into these places telling people they've got to, giving them citations and telling them they got to be out in 30 days or he's going to come back.
I just didn't want to hold the county liable, but saying that, could we not, even those that we have found that have sewage running on the ground or gray water, either one, at least give notice to them that they're outside? At least give notice to them until we have further.
I think it's been discussed that a sundown provision of some sort that tells people, for example, here we are about to be in the dead of winter, and we're going to start enforcing that right now, putting people out where they have nowhere to go, or are we going to wait till spring and as spring approaches, are we going to let people know and educate them as we have with the bulk waste and say, hey, this is coming, it's past, enforcement is coming. That's something that you all have to deal with, I think.
Thank you, Chairman.
And I think that's kind of where I'm leaning towards going. We need to give notice, just like we did with bulk waste. Give our attorney the right to draw up a letter that we could send to every known camper violation. And it's not just campers, like you said. We got these homes that are built. There's a guy in my area that's living in the back of a box trailer. And he's added on to it and made a tarp to make it a little bigger and a little bigger. Well, the reason he's living in that box trailer is because he lit the camper up that was in the yard on fire. So now he's lost his camper and he's in the box trailer. But what we have to look at this is it's not just the gray water and everything else. We're talking about safety for some of these people. I challenge any of you commissioners to go down 11E, right across the street from Hostin Electric. There's a camper there. Used to be in Chris's district. It caught on fire a couple weeks ago. Okay, the reason I knew about it is because he has what's left of it for sale on Facebook. Okay, it caught on fire, he said. There is nothing left of this camper but a frame. So, curiosity, I called him up and asked him, yeah, it started out at a little fire. I was cooking something that caught on fire. It took about 30 minutes for my camper to burn to the ground. How long is it gonna take our fire department to get there if a camper's on fire and we got 2 kids in there? Or an elderly person? I don't wanna put anybody out on the street. I understand it. But we've gotta have rules and we've gotta abide by the rules. We're facing the same thing that we faced with bulk waste that we talk about with the NORS ordinance. Nobody wants to be the bad guy, but somebody has to be. We have to enforce the rules that we put in play. And the problem is, for every day that we put off this camper thing to say, we don't want them to leave now, it's wintertime. Okay, how about we send them a letter saying, come spring, March, April 1st, Hamblen County is going to start enforcing the regulations on campers. We're going to send it out to you. Come April the 1st, March the 1st, we send them saying you got 60 days to have the camper moved. Or vacate living in that camper or that dwelling. So we've gave them almost 4 months, 5 months. They don't do it, then we start citing them. Same way we did with bulk waste. If they remove it after you start citing them and fining them, forgive the fine. If they don't, enforce the fine. But we got to do something. We can't keep just saying, let's put it off. Because if we put this off till spring, then we're going to have to give them till the end of summer. Then we're going to start saying, well, it's starting to get cold this fall season. Let's wait till next year to deal with this. I mean, we just got to deal with it. And I think the first thing is just like we did with everything else. It's education. Let's get Chris to write up in a formal letter telling them Hamblen County is looking into this. In the future, we will start forcing this. We don't even have to put a date on it. But let them know now that the regulations are coming and we're going to stop it. Because for every day that we put this off, we got one more camper to deal with tomorrow. And we're already seeing it. I mean, used to be there was 3 or 4 of them coming home from Greenville. Now there's 4 or 5 more of them going up. And, you know, what Rodney was talking about, Granger County and them wanting to know how to tax them, their biggest concern was because more people were doing illegal campgrounds that's got 4 and 5 houses. Campers on a regular. We're going to start seeing that too. Because people are looking at this as an easy way for someone to live and make a benefit out of it.
What if we went along with that and just, you know, like have that letter that said Hamblen County is aware that you are living in a premise that is not permitted or zoned and you need to fix this. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. One thing, and I think Mr. Capps might, looking back me on this, we might need to caution is saying that because they're unsafe because of fire, when we allow them in our campgrounds that are actual county property, and we do allow them there, we don't need to start telling people, hey, this is unsafe for you, and then we allow them to go into a campground. I've said it before. I was with the volunteer fire for quite some time. If you put 2 campers, please let me finish.
I'm letting you finish.
If you put 2 campers side by side that are 15 to 25 feet apart, the chance of that fire spreading to that other camper is greatly increased versus it just sitting out here to the side. So we can't say, okay, it's okay for you to go to a campground with it, but it's not okay for you to have it at your home. We put ourselves, when we discuss these things and they get out to the public, hey, the county commission, because of our recordings, has looked and they're saying that these things are not safe. They burn up in 30 minutes. But now you can go to a campground and set it up. We're putting ourselves at risk because that was just said.
Okay. And if I said that, I apologize. I said it out of context. My whole standard from day one has always been our 2018 building codes states it is unlawful to live in a camper. Okay? That's all we need to have in the letter. It's already stated. It's in our building codes. for whatever reason. You know,
Thank
the
you.
problem
We've
was, when
Thank
we
you.
seen the first camper, we should have attacked it then, but we didn't.
We have exempted the trailers and campers in our campgrounds. And we've said, you're in a campground and it's gonna be okay, and that's your point. It's the same, the risk is the same or greater, but we say, okay, where are you? Well, I'm in Cherokee Park Campground. That's where the fire is. But we got all these others out there, so where's the fire? Well, the fire's, we're out on Cherokee Drive somewhere, I don't know the number.
Most know
But
their neighbor's
your
mailbox
point
number or
is
something
good,
that can be
but
found.
we've told people, and the only way we couldn't say you can't be in a camper in a campground. That's what the campground's for, right?
Well, I think what we need to do, I don't want to step out on something that is not legal. And I think that we need to let Mr. Capps, talk to the court system, see where we're at on it. And then we would ask Mr. McKinney to draw up a list of everyone that he does have. Then we would draft a letter or to send out to those or to take to them. But I want to make sure that letter is legal, cleared by you before we take it out.
It'll say what you all want it to say.
Well, they are not permitted to be in the yard and run the sewer. That's not permitted. So they don't have a permit. If the letter says you don't have a permit for this, the county is aware of this, and
It could be just as simple as saying, we believe that you are living permanently in a camper, which is substandard housing under our building code, and that the enforcement of that building code will begin at some point in the spring, and we'll let you know. You may receive further. Of course, we can't send everybody a letter. Somebody's may have to hand deliver these. Send a drone over and drop them or whatever. But we'll figure that out, I guess.
All right, thank you, Mr. Capps. Mr. Chairman, I think that's all that I have. There's nothing to vote on tonight. We'll get that information. Would ask for that to be back by the February committee.
All right, so Chairman Long suggests that we will gather more information and possibly meet again as a committee in February and continue with discussion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
At that point?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your report. We'll now move to our Calendar and Rules Committee. Chairman Doty, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Calendar and Rules Committee meeting to order. Do we have anyone wishing to address this committee at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Item 3A is old business. We have none. Item 4A is a review of the regular calendar items. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on these items? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 4B is review of the consent calendar items. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Ahern. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Doty. Commissioners, all minds clear? We are adjourned.